Well, Sixer Nation, it is already that time of year. The trade talk's starting to heat up once again. One name is emerging today, but is it realistic? We will break it all down. Let's go.
Perfect.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Philly Take with RB. Like always, you know the drill. Hit the like button, subscribe right now, hit the bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. We're back. It's game day. 4 days off the Sixers had after that monstrous performance from Joel Embiid. They will take on the Bucks tonight at Wells Fargo Center, and we will be breaking all that down live tonight, so be sure to come out later tonight. But it's lunchtime, and we have an update. That's right, the trade talk starting to surge already. It feels like every year we hear about this one. That is right, coming out earlier just this morning. The Sixers apparently discussing potential trades involving who? Tobias Harris per Shams Charania. And now, it's interesting, man, because last night I was on a live show collaborating with Sean Bernard and DJ Eastwood. Shout out to them. And it's weird because we had this exact talk. You know, we were talking about the direction of the team and how this Sixers team can improve. And I had a lot of realization moments last night, just kind of thinking, you know, outside of Maxey and Embiid, like, you know, obviously we don't want to ever trade Embiid, and we look at the rest of this squad up and down. It's like, how would we move forward and get better if we did decide to, you know, try to sell some pieces and move on, right? Because, you know, the Sixers have a major deficiency right now. They have a major flaw, and that is that they're not using their developed talent. They're not using their draft picks to help them out. If you look at the teams who are historically successful, not only do they go out and make moves, but they develop from within. Look at the teams the last couple years, and everybody wants to point the finger at Daryl Morey. But in reality, I mean, we've had pieces here, right? We had Charles Bassey, Isaiah Joe. Those are just a couple examples, but all of these guys, Thibault, Springer, like, we need to develop from within, because you can't just go out and make a major ton of splashes in free agency or via trade. You also have to have that complete circle of talent. So anyway, we were just kind of talking and reflecting on how this team moves forward. And it came down to this conversation. You know, Tobias Harris is a good guy. He has done everything he's, you know, said and put forth this offseason. You know, he's a leader. He's a vocal leader, and he's tried to adapt to a new role. But at the end of the day, you know, he just doesn't fit the mold. He doesn't fit what we need. I give him credit for trying to adapt and being, you know, willing to take a step back and say, you know, I had a big ego and I have to take a step off that and try to become a more willing shooter and all this stuff. But it's just not fitting. And the way I know that is because he's having such an efficient year, and it's really not moving the needle at all for us. But anyway, more on this potential trade talk. The way they're putting it is that he's being involved in trade discussions. Now, we've heard this for, 2-3 years now, and we know that Daryl Morey has partially cleaned up a mess, and there's still a lot to clean up. But anyway, Sean Bernard posts the screenshot from Shams' article, and it says, Sixers discussed Tobias Harris with teams. Sixers officials have begun their usual check-ins with teams across the league ahead of the December 15th date for players who sign contracts in the offseason to be traded. Philadelphia's Tobias Harris has come up in the Sixers conversations with clubs so far. League sources said in his 12th NBA season, Harris has adapted to a new role and has been regarded as a model teammate and leader for the Sixers. He's averaged 14.7 points per game, 6.2 rebounds while attempting 12 field goals per game, the lowest since 2015-16 in Orlando. And they don't even mention it here, but Tobias Harris is actually shooting almost 40% from deep. I think about a week ago, it was around 44%. So realistically, he's having some of his best numbers. And I mean, you know, he's shown that he's willing to adapt and try a different role. The problem is you have so many ball handlers here. You have the offense, which is centric, you know, based on the center position, which is not really, you know, traditional. And it's not, we're not used to seeing that, right? So Joel Embiid needs a heavy dose of touches. Maxey needs the ball. Harden, when he comes back, will need the ball. And Tobias is a guy that, let's be honest, needs the ball in his hands sometimes, and he can't just be a spot-up shooter. And when it boils down to it, as much of a good guy and a model teammate he is, you can't have your fourth option making $37 million a year. Next year, the last year of his contract, he'll be making $39 million. So Daryl Morey sees this. He knows there's probably going to be opportunity to improve the roster, and sometimes you just have to make the business decision. In fact, I mean, I'm never going to fault Tobias Harris for taking that contract. We've talked about it and just continued to just preach how bad of a contract it is. I can't blame him. I mean, I can't blame a guy for betting on himself, having his dad as his agent and going out there and making more money. In fact, I blame Elton Brand for ever giving him that. And we've talked about that countless times. But anyway, Daryl Morey's going to start to weigh the trade market. Obviously, the Sixers have an open roster spot, so maybe you'd have to take in a couple players and then, try to find a way to shed that salary, maybe from an expiring vet or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And again, I'm not saying Tobias isn't playing well. He's having an efficient year so far. It just doesn't fit what we need. The Sixers need an athletic wing. They need an athletic rebounder, a guy who's just, going to be able to move around, help Embiid down low in the paint, grab some boards. Sixers have been suboptimal some games on the glass, most games, and they just need more of that energy spark and a guy who can just spot up and knock down shots, and just kind of fit the mold around Harden, Maxey, and Embiid. Which brings me to my other point today, because in this big article that Shams dropped, he also dropped this nugget. The Hawks have opened up preliminary trade discussions involving John Collins as teams inquire. Now, John Collins feels like a guy similar to Tobias, like in that same boat where for a couple years now, we just keep hearing they're trying to trade John Collins. They're trying to trade John Collins. He just doesn't really fit. And my question to Sixer Nation is, would you entertain this trade? Now, before I answer that question, I think it's a very difficult one, more than people see on the surface, because John Collins is making, $26-27 million a year for the next three. He's locked up for the next three. So if this is a trade you go forward with, you have to be comfortable that he can really be that guy to fit in. He looked like an all-star a couple years ago, and he's kind of dipped a little bit. The question is, can he provide the value for this Sixers team? Now, while Tobias Harris, can score the ball and he can give you 18 a night, can give you 20 a night on some nights, John Collins is not going to do that. He's averaging 12 points a game this year. The difference for John Collins is that he averages almost 8 rebounds a game. He averages almost 1.5 blocks per game. He's a more versatile defender. He can move around, and he's a lob threat. He can go up, crash the glass, and kind of take some of that pressure off Embiid for some nights, as we would hope to see, right? And he's a guy that can run pick and roll on the receiving end, and, with Harden and Maxey, and just kind of go up, right? We talk about Tobias Harris and his, lack of strength at the basket. He lays these little touches up sometimes when he should be throwing down a hammer. So it's an interesting fit. Do I think the fit would be better? Yes. But I'm not sure that I'm sold on John Collins being that piece that he once showed a couple years ago. Maybe the better situation would do it for him. You see, my issue right now with John Collins is that he's actually shooting his worst of his career, and by far. Right now, this season, to this point, he is shooting 22.7% from deep, and over the course of his career, he's been around 37, 39, 40%. If we can get that John Collins that not only can play stronger and go up and grab rebounds, but he can shoot, post up in the corner at the wing, I would take that John Collins. I actually am starting to think that that might actually be a suitable trade partner. But if he has lost his shot and he can't find it, and it gets to that point, we know that we cannot afford to have another non-shooter on the floor. Maybe it would benefit us, for example, having a guy like Paul Reed, right? How he doesn't really have an offensive game, but can bring that energy. If we can just get that offensive John Collins that we've seen the last couple years, along with what we know he can do, it's definitely an option I would explore. Now, again, you might have to take back another player in that trade, and maybe you could get more value. The question is, would the Hawks want a guy like Tobias Harris when they already have Trae Young, DeJounte Murray? So definitely an interesting thing to keep your eyes on. I don't know if that would be a good fit for them. But what I do know is that these talks will continue to heat up. Tobias is always a big mention, especially as we get closer to the trade deadline. It feels like every year it's been one guy or the other, right? Al Horford, Ben Simmons. It's like we're slowly cleaning up these bad contracts. And, at the end of the day, I could definitely see opportunity here coming forth with the Sixers. And if it is there, I do not think Daryl Morey's going to hesitate. I think he's going to push every button to try to make this team better, to try to clear up cap space, and to try to put us, in a championship mode moving forward. So We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but it is interesting that this conversation is already coming up, especially when we talked about it last night. Tobias is one of the ways that you clear some paths to try to make this team better, not only this year, but going forward into the future. So those are my quick thoughts. I want to hear from you. What would you think about this potential trade idea? And what do you think about the conversation already surfacing with Tobias Harris? Give me all your thoughts down below in the comments section. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And like always, I will catch you on the next one. Peace.